on this episode of A Tale of Two Hygienists.
One thing that I noticed that was different was in the beginning of the appointment, you have to verify their name and date of birth. You verify that you have that exact patient and explain exactly what you're going to do that day. It has to be verified. Because usually when you, even if you know the patient, you've seen them 3 or 4 times, you still have to do the same thing every single time. You have to know exactly, hey, we're going to work on the upper left or we're going to work on the lower right. Hey, and then please verify your name and date of birth. I am not on SOFA status, so in order to work there or stay in Germany, I had to get a residence permit, which that is a very long process. Because when you move over there and you lose SOFA status, you have 90 days to, once you enter to if you want to stay there longer than 90 days, you have to be actively looking for work. And within that 90 days, you have to show a contract, you have to go into appointments and explain what you're doing, provide the contract, provide your credentials, your income, your residence, where you live, you show everything.
Yeah, this is a tale, oh yeah, a tale of two hygienists. So there might be only one, bringing the best of dental knowledge, and we do it all with ease. We cover oral health and screening, and preventing gum disease. We're gonna do a lot of learning, and have a little bit of fun working at the dentist. A tale of two hygienists.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Tale of Two Hygienists podcast, episode number 428. I'm your host, Andrew Johnston, and welcome to this week's episode. As I mentioned last week on the intro, this episode features Lacy Walker, a really good friend of the show, but also she is instrumental in this company that we have. She's the one that puts together all that amazing CE that we have to offer. She meticulously pores through every episode that's applicable for CE, creates the questions and puts them together and makes the tests for it, gets it posted. She does a lot for us. And so we're really thankful for her. But Lacy embarked on an amazing journey. She moved from her home here in the States to go live overseas in Germany. And so this episode was exploring that decision. What have her experiences been so far? She ended up going and working on the base in Germany. And what was that experience like? Unfortunately, we did have some recording snafus at the conference where we were recording this. And so the show does kind of end a little bit abruptly, but we promise we'll get her back on again in the future. But special thanks to her for doing this. And then next week, we have another episode featuring a hygienist that was working abroad. And this time it'll be in Switzerland, where she found a really good job. It was a really great experience for her, and she found the love of her life. So be sure to join us next week for that one. We also have a survey going. If you haven't heard about that already, I'll put a link to that in the show notes. So if you haven't taken it yet, please make sure you do. But essentially, we're just looking for thoughts on the guests, on the content, the direction of the podcast. So if you have a few moments, I'd really appreciate you all filling that out. Like I said, there'll be a link in the show notes. As a thank you, we'll enter you into a drawing to win a $50 Amazon gift card. And then the last thing for this is special thanks to Annie Walters for jumping in on this episode. I gave her about probably 3 seconds of a heads up and told her to drive the show, and she did amazing. Annie's a new addition to RDH Magazine and Endeavor Business Media, who's the parent company and owns the podcast and owns RDH Magazine, Dental Economics, and all of those. So we expect that you'll be seeing and hearing more from her in the future. And then again, special thanks to Amanda Hill for jumping on in kind of the middle of this as well and lending, her expertise and some good questions. So thank you to everyone that participated on this episode. And with that, here is the episode with Lacy Walker.
A tale of two hygienists.
I don't know. I don't even really have a background on her, so that's why I'm kind of just listening to what you were saying.
Ask her the questions to get the background.
Great.
Right? All right. Well, listeners, welcome into this interview portion of the podcast. We are doing a fun one because it's with our buddy Lacy. Lacy, welcome to this side of the podcast. Have you been interviewed before?
I think so. There was a couple times. No, I don't think I've been on a couple of the podcasts, but
you did some tip-episode stuff with us and things like that.
And I write the continuing education courses for you. So.
Yeah. Lacy's been with us for a really long time. She does really great work. We love working with her. It's going to be a continued partnership for hopefully a long time.
Yes.
But
crossed.
kind of the backstory is, she up and moved to Germany, and that's what we were going to talk about today. I have with me writing as co-host Annie. Annie, thank you for co-hosting and
Hi, Andrew. Yes.
driving this conversation, hopefully.
You're welcome. I'm so
Our
excited
listeners are
to be
so
here.
tired of listening to my voice. So they're like, oh,
Mixing
a new
it up.
voice. Yeah, let's do this.
Great. Happy
So,
to do that.
all right. So let's do this. We've had episodes before on what it's like working in a foreign country. Listeners, you've heard maybe the one that we did in Oman. Depending on when this gets released, we just did a recent one with someone who worked in Switzerland. But this is going to be a little bit different because this isn't a hygienist who is working in a foreign country, but it's what a U.S. hygienist is experiencing going abroad and trying to find work and all that kind of stuff. Because it can be a challenge, but, well, we'll find out what the ending is of that later on. I was going to say it ends good, but like maybe it won't. You don't know. Stay tuned to the end. Cliffhanger.
Great.
Okay.
Yes. Gotta have those cliffhangers.
So, Lacy, let's talk
Yes.
about this. So, to set the stage, I think, for everyone that might not know who you are, before you moved to Germany, you're starting to take on more and more gigs, more and more roles with, different companies and things like that. Like you were, what I would have said is an up and comer. Like you were kind of making your way in the industry. Had you stayed here a little bit longer, I think that you would be, continue down that path.
Right.
You moved to Germany.
Mm-hmm.
That had to have been a hard decision to make, knowing what you were leaving behind. Do you miss the things that you left behind?
I do, on some extent. I mean, I miss the house that we had. It was on 6 acres. We had the freedom to let our dog out. We don't, have to have him on a leash. But now, like where we live now, we have to have him on a leash. There's that. Or there's just the different foods. Like I miss, American food, but my body doesn't miss it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's quite a few things that I do miss. I miss just having the quick, easy access to come to conferences.
Yeah.
Now, as I have to kind of pick and choose, all right, which one is going to be the most beneficial for me? When the decision came to go to Germany, I kind of was hesitant because, if you know me well enough, I don't like change. So it was to the point where if I moved over there, I didn't have to work. So I could focus on developing my own business, which is Shared Hygiene. And I like to write and speak. And yeah, so I spoke for Under One Roof a couple years ago and also last year. And so I just like to share information, whether it's for patients or for hygienists. So
Can I ask you to
Yes.
clarify? You said shared hygiene. Is that what you're referring to as far as sharing information, or what do you
Yes.
mean by that?
It's Shared Hygiene. I want it to be for my website to be for patients to learn from,
Okay.
but also the CE courses that I write for hygienists to get CE credit as well, because I'm accredited by the American Academy of Dental Hygiene as well.
Okay. And I would imagine through your website, do you speak into quite a bit about your experiences in Germany?
I haven't spoken on that. I'm actually working on writing my first book.
Okay, great.
This,
That's exciting.
this is accountability for me right now
Great. Yeah.
to
Put
make
it
sure
out
I
there in
finish
the
it.
ether.
My
It's
husband's
gonna
been trying to get me to just get all that information out of your head
Yes.
and onto paper. So it's actually going to be called Choices. So there's a lot of choices that you have to make in life. There's like the good choices, or do you choose to make a decision? And every decision is, a choice. Whether it's a good choice, or do you have regret not making that choice to speak up
Absolutely.
or do something? So yeah, and then my next one's going to be working on that one too. Is called Catch Me. So
Great.
hopefully you'll catch me on the second book.
So I'm always so curious what dentistry looks like outside of the U.S.
So I actually work on a military base.
Okay.
So it's a German base, but it's in Ramstein.
Okay.
So I love the team I work with, and there are different regulations between what you have to do for German standards versus U.S. standards.
Okay.
But I really enjoy it. I work part time,
Okay.
a few days a week, so it's really enjoyable.
And is the practice model, is it similar to what it looks like in the U.S.? Like,
It's similar.
okay.
Yeah, there's the hygiene protocols that we have to follow, and the German standards that we have to follow as well.
Is prevention as prioritized there as it is here?
Yes. Yeah, we have all the protocols, all the books that you have to have, and then you have to. One thing that I noticed that was different was in the beginning of the appointment, you have to verify their name and date of birth.
Oh, okay.
Verify that you have that exact patient, and then explain exactly what you're going to do that day. It has to be verified. Because usually when you, even if you know the patient, you've seen them 3 or 4 times, you still have to do the same thing every single time. You have to know exactly, hey, we're going to work on the upper left, or we're going to work on the lower right. Hey, and then please verify your name and date of birth.
It's similar to
Like a hospital setting.
Yeah, I was
Yes.
going to say it's very similar to like or a federally qualified health
Yes.
center. You have to verify that. So
Yes. It's just I
interesting.
miss some of the products that we could have in the U.S.
That was going to be my next
Yes.
question. What does products look like? Because I mean, that's a huge part of our job too,
Yeah. So I mean,
and access to products. I
Yeah, the
guess,
access. I
for
mean, there's-
patients to access too.
yeah. I mean, we have I think they have a contract with the supply company, but so one thing I thought that was interesting was we were trying to get some like Oracix.
Okay.
So I left North Carolina right after they approved local anesthesia. So I was not able
my
to get
gosh.
that course.
okay.
Now that they approved it, but so we were trying to get Oracix, so we didn't have to call the doctor to anesthetize. But they have Oracix, but not the applicator. So I can buy the Oracix,
interesting.
but I can't buy the applicator over there.
Oh, that
Which is
weird.
so weird because
And then-
obviously here it just comes together.
It just comes together in a kit. And I was like, okay, this
So you're
is
like, how am I supposed
how
to
am I supposed
administer
get
it?
And maybe it's just not in the, I don't know. They just were backordered or something. I don't know. So I was like, there's got to be a way. So their syringes are different as well. So I was like, all right, let me try something. So I was able to get the Oracix into the syringe. And I'm like, all right, let's try it this way.
Not,
And it
yeah.
works.
Well, it sounds like you have to get creative.
Yes.
And especially coming, and I feel like that's a huge benefit to you because coming from the U.S. where you do have access to those products, but maybe you can help introduce more of those
Yes,
products
that's
overseas.
my plan.
So,
But,
great.
Yeah.
What about the other providers that are in there? Is it mostly, spouses of, military workers that are
Yes.
doing that?
Yeah. So a lot of them are active duty military spouses, or they're active duty themselves, or, but I mean, my husband's retired. So I am not on SOFA status. So in order to work there or stay in Germany, I had to get a residence permit, which that is a very
Interesting.
long process. Very long. Because when you move over there and you lose SOFA status, you have 90 days
Hmm.
to, once you enter to like, if you want to stay there longer than 90 days, you have to be actively looking for work. And within that 90 days, you have to like show a contract. You have to, yeah. So it's a long process. You have to go into appointments and explain what you're doing, provide the contract, provide your credentials, your income, your residence, where you live. You show everything.
That seems an invasion of your privacy a little bit. That seems a little bit much.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was a long process, but like now I have the German residence permit to work, and yeah, I actually enjoy it because where we live is actually a perfect spot to live.
How long was the time period when you moved there until you got this job on the base?
Actually, so when a couple of conferences ago, I just I was working with Connect the Dents for a little bit, and I was doing a lot of research, and I just happened to come across a DSO that I did not hear of before. So I was like, okay, I was intrigued. I was like, okay, well, tell me more about your company, your DSO.
mhm.
And so they're like, oh, well, we have one in Guam, and we're expanding into Germany, like in the next year. And I was like, well, I'm about to go there next year. And they're like, well, do you have a resume? So I just happened to, send my resume to them, and they
Great.
they're like, hey, do you want to work part-time as needed or full-time? So I chose part-time because I'm like, I kind of missed it because I was not working for a whole year while in Germany when I first got there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I kind of miss clinical. I miss it. I miss interacting with the patients. And,
Definitely.
so yeah, I sent my resume there, and now I'm contracting with them.
That's awesome. It's amazing how just conferences, how you can connect with the right people, and it works.
Happens. Things happen for a reason.
It does happen for a reason. This may not be a super important, but did you already speak German going over there?
Nein.
So is the language barrier challenging?
Yeah. So 9. I don't know a lot of German.
Okay.
I know a little bit, enough to get by. Like if I want to pay for something with my card,
Sure.
it's like Karte bitte or Dankeschön, vielen Dank. Those kind of a little bit. I know a little bit, enough to get around. But if they, speak too fast, it's
Right.
hard for me to absorb it fast enough.
Or even dental terminology.
Yeah, so I don't have to know dental terminology.
Oh, okay.
So it's a military base, so it's all active duty military family members,
Oh,
and
okay.
or anybody that is willing to like pay out of pocket,
Sure.
or if they have active duty military insurance, it's
Okay.
okay. But most of them are English speaking. I mean, yeah, so it's easier there. So
Okay.
it feels like home
Sure.
in the States.
That makes sense.
So,
yeah,
yeah.
I would imagine. Yeah, being on the base, it is.
What was like a lesson that you wish that someone would have told you before you started this process?
Learn German. It'd be a lot
That's
easier.
the big one. Well, I mean,
Just make
so
it
if you
more
would have learned
seamless.
German, though, you would have worked private practice possibly?
It possibly, because there's actually, went out for a run the other day, and when I first got there, I was like, all right, I want to run through the park. And I was like, okay. And it was because it's really nice. Everybody walks around there. Because I'd rather walk to where I need to go instead of drive, just
Yeah.
because there's parking issues. And I just happened to see an operatory light just in the window. And I was like, wait a minute, this doesn't look like a dental office. And I look and I'm like, yeah, it is. So it just, the architecture of those buildings, it just doesn't look like your typical dental office.
Did you face any challenges as far as, you touched on this as far as like working there, but like licensure and things like that? What does that look like?
Yeah. So with my license in North Carolina, you have to have at least one dentist per 2 hygienists.
Okay.
So when I got over there, I was like, okay, well, what is the jurisdiction, with over there?
Yep.
And so I called the state board because I was like, well, if they schedule, it's 1 doctor, but 3 hygienists, I'm like, can I work? So I know it's a military base, but I'm over in Germany. So I called them and they did tell me that they don't have jurisdiction, but I don't know that they really understood what I was saying. So I was like, okay, let me just keep it 1 dentist per 2 hygienists and we'll go
Just
from
to
there.
be sure.
Just to be sure, because I don't want to violate any issues. Because I was like, okay, well, whose license do I fall under?
Okay.
Is it
Right.
Is it the dentist or is it the provider? Is it the German contract?
Right.
So there's all these different variables.
Okay. And then same thing with like administering local anesthetic, because obviously you said
Right.
there were restrictions, in the States where you were practicing, but what does that look like in Germany?
Yeah, I don't know. So I don't know. So
Interesting.
in Germany, they don't even have a licensing board. So you don't have to go through a board process.
So you just go through your education and that's
it. And even because I went to a conference in the UK, because my daughter lives in the UK. She's attending college there.
Cool.
And so I was like, well, I kind of want to see a UK conference, the British Society. So I was like, okay, let me see what theirs is like. And got to see them. And they're like, oh, yeah, once you go through your education, your proficiency exams, like that's it.
So
After
interesting.
each proficiency, I think that's the way they explained it to me. And yeah, it just seemed odd that you don't, at the very end, have to take a 7-hour test?
Right.
Or a clinical exam?
Yeah, written board or clinical exam.
Yeah.
All right, we got to interrupt this
Uh-oh.
regularly scheduled program here, whatever. We have a guest co-host again, another guest co-host. Amanda Hill's on the show now, jumping in the middle of this
Hi, guys.
this podcast. We're talking, just so you have a little heads up of what we're talking about, is Lacy's time working in Germany on the base in there.
It's exciting.
And I was thinking, you know what? I don't have a military background. Is there a question we're not asking? I know you didn't hear the whole thing so far, but like, is there a question that you feel like the listeners need to know about from Lacy about like working on a base that we wouldn't think about, especially internationally?
Well, I think one of them, and maybe you've gone here because, I just showed up, but what have you found as far as getting to work on a base, on the military base, not necessarily outside the base, but on the base, and how hard is that to do?
It was a little difficult only because of our situation, because of it was, it's a German contract. So you had to abide by German standards and that process. So, and then German taxes. That I'm not too fond of right now.
Wait, German taxes?
Yes.
German
so
taxes
you
are
have to,
huge.
You want to
They're
explain
huge.
that a little? So, I mean, because
they take out a lot. And then, but they do provide you with free healthcare, or it's part of
So
it.
like
They have free
socialized,
healthcare.
whatever.
Yeah.
They
So
do,
the-
yeah. But
okay.
when I lived there, it was about 60% of my paycheck
Yikes.
Whoa.
went to taxes.
How much
Now,
was it? Sorry.
About 60.
Okay, so mine isn't that much.
Okay.
Okay. So
Maybe I filled out the
You're
form
getting
wrong.
it felt
taken
like
advantage of.
Yeah,
The government owes you
checked
money
the
for
wrong
that.
check.
how many hours you
German
work.
government.
Precisely, and I was going to work. Mine was a day a week, so it was very small, and so it was
Okay.
just. And then what I found, but there is a way to get back that money later down the road.
Yeah, so I read something about
which
that. So
I
I
never
don't
understood
know
because the form was confusing.
Yes, I'm very confused on how that works.
Yeah.
So I mean, they take a lot of money out, but at least hey,
So
I can
much.
stay there.
But I'll tell you, I have good friends that worked full-time hygiene when they lived in Germany, and one had a baby, and I get the maternity coverage.
The maternity
yes,
leave
you-
is
you're
amazing
not allowed to work.
After your first trimester,
in Germany.
actually, after your first trimester, the case for her, maybe after she wasn't allowed to work clinically
Right.
after her first trimester, but then still had to be employed by the office. So then she worked at the
Still
front
got paid.
desk, made her hygiene wage at the front desk,
Oh, wow.
Amazing.
filing charts until she had a baby in the German hospital, which was completely fully paid for, and then
Yep.
got an entire year off and got money.
And paternity leave
Yes.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it didn't count because her husband was military. So
Oh, yeah. He doesn't get any time
The
off.
Americans usurped that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
It's
there are
still
some
amazing in
neat adventures.
Germany.
Yeah,
But
there's some
I
perks.
guess more what I meant from that question is how is it's often my experience has been it's very hard to break into the bases. They aren't necessarily like a million job openings, but maybe that's
Right.
different.
Yeah, so there was a couple of conferences ago that I just happened to see this BSO, and I was like, I haven't heard of it before, so I just casually just walked by, like looked at it, and they're like, oh yeah, we're opening up one in Germany, and I was like, I'm about to be there next year. They're like, oh, do you have a resume?
Now, are you on the base
Yes.
itself?
Yeah, I'm on
Okay.
Ramstein.
Okay,
Yes.
you're on Ramstein. Okay.
Yes.
So a DSO runs the office.
Yeah,
on the
it's a
base?
multi-practice, group.
It's interesting.
So they're actually based out of, I think, Pennsylvania, I believe.
So they have a contract with the
And do
government.
they have multiple contracts across
Yeah,
the
so they have
across
one
the
in-
globe?
Yeah, so I don't know about all across the globe, but I mean, they have one in Guam, and this is their first one in Germany, so they're trying to expand,
Ah.
is what it is.
Okay, that's interesting. Because I worked at an office off base.
Okay.
So in Germany, there's,
Right.
clearly, largest amount of Americans outside of America.
Yeah.
They're in the Ramstein area.
Mhm.
And it was just an American expat dentist
Right.
who then, saw patients that took American insurance. And so they needed an American licensed hygienist, but it didn't matter where you were licensed.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. As long as you
At
have a
all.
contract and you make a certain
Interesting.
amount a month, if
Yeah.
it's over a certain amount, yes, then you have to get German taxes taken out.
And
But if
that's
it's like
and
a
that was the
mini job,
story.
and
No, that is
another
yeah,
issue,
mine
so-
was off base. So
Okay.
maybe that was my 60%. Maybe that's what-
maybe.
For those that want to learn more about you, or how can they find you?
Yeah, just if you can go to sharedhygiene.com. or you can-
Sharedhygiene.com. Okay. Great.
Yeah, this is a tale, oh yeah, a tale of two hygienists. So there might be only one, bringing the best of dental knowledge, and we do it all with ease. We cover oral health and screening, and preventing gum disease. We're gonna do a lot of learning, and have a little bit of fun working at the dentist. A tale of two hygienists.